What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at it's a popular channel, I think. I can't really remember, But anyways, there's this new guy that I've found, not that he's new to YouTube, but a new guy that I've found that says that atheism, like being an atheist, or what he calls believing in atheism, is worse than believing in magic. I feel like that might be a little bit of a self-burn there, admitting that your own religion is magical, because that's how I feel about any of the religions that exist today. They're very magical. But he is going to be telling us why he has that opinion, why he thinks that atheism is far more supernatural or magical than, I guess, Christianity or religion or belief in God in general. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at tonight. If you want to fuck around and find out how atheism is so much more magical than Christianity or any belief in a God, then please stay tuned. All right, let's get to it. Now, this guy, this is a clip from a longer video. It's less than 5 minutes long. So we're just going to take a look at it real quick and see what he has. And like half of the video is just some motherfucker talking. So let's see what happens here. Y'all ready to go? You ready to go? She's ready. That means we're all ready.
Continuing with the theme of building a better worldview, let's go to a video of an ex-Christian mocking atheism. Just a heads up, major language warning for the rest of the episode.
I like how at the beginning of these videos, the Christians always have to be like, be careful, there's some language ahead. I feel like, and I don't expect everybody to have this opinion, but my opinion is that this particular topic that we're discussing is not appropriate for children in the first place. Like religion, God, and all that, I feel like it's not appropriate for children to have that kind of conversation on the level that we're having it. I don't push religion or non-religion on my son. I just don't push religion in any kind of sense. And whenever he brings it up, you know, it's him bringing it up, and I try to not be so hardcore about atheism, I guess. I try to be very open, try to let him know that it's okay to explore different ideas and everything like that, try to make him feel safe to explore those things without any kind of worry that I'm going to react in a negative way, like if he becomes religious. But after speaking to my son and hearing him talk about this topic, I don't think that it'll happen, but you know, anything's possible in the future. I just like how even grown-ups are afraid of language at times.
Some people think God created the universe. Some people think nothing created the universe, which is the funniest guess. And the nothing people make fun of the God people. They say God doesn't exist. I'm like, okay, maybe. But you know what definitely doesn't exist? Nothing. That's the defining characteristic of nothing, is that it doesn't exist.
He gets a lot of things wrong here. Obviously, he's playing off of the whole trope of the alternative theistic creation of the universe is just nothing created it, as if nothing could be something. A little bit of nuance to that, because the nothing that he's talking about is absolute nothing, which we haven't actually observed to exist in reality. That's just a propositional thing. Like the whole idea of nothing existing is not something that we can actually reproduce at all in scientific experiments or anything like that. When we pull everything, every piece of whatever out of particular space, we find that there's still a very small electrical charge there. So the nothing that people think exists isn't actually nothing. It is still something, and that something has the potential to produce an entire universe. There's a lot of different complex scientific ideas about how this universe could have inflated. We do know at one point that it did inflate. We have the cosmic microwave background radiation and all that kind of stuff to explain that the universe did in fact inflate, 13.5 billion years ago. We have that explanation. It doesn't include this absolute nothing that he's talking about. So his entire comedic routine here is based off of personal incredulity. He doesn't know what the actual argument is, and so he just runs with this false dichotomy of, either God did it or nothing did it. And obviously the nothing doing it is unreasonable. It's laughable. He's built a straw man in order to argue about how the universe came into existence. And that's not funny, to me at least. Like, as he's going through, I'm like, well, that's not what it actually says. Oh, that's not what the science says. Oh, that's not what the evidence is. It doesn't come across as funny to me. It comes across as ignorant, personally. Of course, this guy right here thinks it's the most hilarious shit he's ever heard. So, you know, that's where he's coming from. I'm just not impressed with the argument that's provided here. In fact, it presents a false dichotomy of explanations, because it's, oh wait, no, my God did it, versus like each one of those verses, but versus the plethora of scientific hypotheses that could explain how the universe inflated or came into existence itself.
So what are we talking about? Either you think it's God, something you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove, or you think it's nothing, something you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove. But I think we can all agree, if your nothing sometimes spontaneously erupts into everything, that's a pretty goddamn magical fucking nothing, you guys.
Oh, apparently he's not a Christian. It would be a weird thing for Christians to say, but he's apparently not a Christian. He's not a Christian, but he also hates atheists, apparently. He also hates them, or doesn't like atheists, or thinks that atheists are holier than thou. Basically, the thing that he presented right there, the concept of nothing, the scientific concept of nothing, inflating into everything that exists today, that's not magical. That's explained through scientific hypotheses that we have yet to confirm. So there's still little room for the magical God idea to happen. But what he was pointing out there was that the theistic explanation for the universe is just as magical as the science explanation. So atheists shouldn't act all holier than thou compared to Christians. Like, they're atheists are no better than Christians in this respect, which this isn't an atheist argument, it's a scientific argument. So, I mean, you could say scientists, but there are religious scientists out there. So, I mean, you're kind of fucked on multiple fronts at this point in the comedian's routine. He just simply doesn't understand it. I'm guessing that he would not want any kind of pushback or feedback on this, because he's just doing his set, right? And his set is totally fucking bullshit at this particular point. I don't know how the rest of his set is, but, you know, I would not have a good opinion about him after this point, considering he's saying, oh, you're holier than thou. No, I just like to explain my worldview with natural fucking processes, evidence, and reasonable explanations. That's how I like to explain things. Why do you think that explaining shit with natural processes is just as fucking magical as God farting it out of his ass? I don't know. And I don't know why he thinks it's just as magical. At this point, I have to ask, do you think the rain is fucking magical? What about the rock cycle? Does fucking shit just turn into different shit? Or is it radiometric decay? Not radiometric decay, radioactive decay. Which one is it? Is that fucking magical? Like, is radioactive decay fucking magical at this point because some atoms spontaneously turn into daughter elements? No, it's not magical. It's a natural fucking process. You can tell that this kind of shit fuckery just gets on my nerves, right? Casey can tell. Thank you, honey.
Okay, a couple of quick points. I'm not certain that God can't be scientifically proven. There are a lot of things you can't scientifically measure that you can, in fact, prove. Cave paintings and arrowheads archaeologically would prove that there was some sort of primitive human civilization there. And similarly, the fine-tuning of the universe, the mathematical structure of the universe, the fact that there's information in the cell. I'm not going to develop any of those right now, but just simply to say these are scientifically established facts. And trying to explain them without a mind, I think, is almost always far more absurd than simply postulating that there was a mind behind these things.
I don't know, honey, do you understand like his connection between cave paintings and arrowheads to the thinking that a magical mind created everything and put information in ourselves? This seems like a non sequitur, because he's like, there's a lot of things that you can't prove in science. And then he mentions cave paintings and arrowheads showing that there were primitive peoples that created those things. So, like archaeology is a science. Archaeology uses science in order to come to these conclusions. I mean, sure, this is like a most likely scenario. So you're talking in statistics and probability, which is still part of science. Exactly how in the fuck does all that, like, does science not prove those things? And then he compares these natural things to the supernatural idea that a mind is required to, quote unquote, put information in our cells, which he's talking about DNA. DNA can be interpreted as information. We can interpret the chemical bonds in order to be information. Like, we can interpret them that way. They are not like some kind of intelligently made information. Like, there's a difference between like the natural information that exists just naturally in the world, but we have to be there to interpret this information, right? And then there's man-made man-made information. Like, a good example of that would be like a book. A book is definitely a man-made interpretation. Now, you can read DNA like a book if you would like to, and being intelligent agents ourselves, we can interpret those chemical bonds in DNA to mean something, but it does not inherently have information. We have to interpret it in that way. Like all the other things that he mentioned in his little spill there, he says it's easier to propose that a mind is behind it than to not. And I agree, I guess, with that sentiment. It is easier to make up a bullshit explanation for something. Why is it raining, sir? Well, you know, last night I did fuck a virgin on a full moon, so we should probably keep doing that. Like, you can make up bullshit all you want to, but that doesn't mean that it comports with reality. That doesn't mean that it's the correct conclusion to come to. If a conclusion is hard to come to, it's hard to prove, that doesn't mean anything about whether or not the conclusion is right. It's hard for us to come to that conclusion with our restrictive human experience, but that doesn't mean that it's hard in the way that it makes it not true.
And another example is the beginning of the universe. And he says, you know, you basically can believe God created it or nothing created it, that non-existence gave rise to all of existence.
So, sorry to stop it so quick, but if you restate this in a way that really exposes how ridiculous that he's saying here, it's like, well, either a magical old-ass magician that exists outside of reality made it rain, or rain just spontaneously happened with no explanation behind it. It was just a clear fucking day, and then all of a sudden, fucking rain. It just came out of nowhere. Like, if you restate it in a way that takes it, I guess, from one natural process to a natural process that you can easily understand, that you might already understand, like how the rain cycle or the water cycle works. That's an easily understandable natural process that we can explain at various levels of complexity. And of course, everybody gets confused by the beginning of the universe because they just can't really consider like all the different intricacies that go into how the universe is created. Like, I wouldn't expect a normal person to know that a fluctuation in a quantum scalar field is a likely way that the universe could have inflated, because when a quantum scalar field fluctuates from a false vacuum state to a true vacuum state, it releases an immense amount of potential energy, and that potential energy is released as in what's called inflatons, and all of this inflaton energy then degrades into the matter that we have now, and during that degradation process, it heats up the universe to a point where not even light can travel through it. So, I mean, I don't expect people to know that intricate of an idea, one possible explanation for the inflation of the universe. But the water cycle, somebody just, Eric Mishima in the chat while we're doing this live just mentioned the tide goes in, the tide goes out. You can't explain that. Oh my fucking God, you dipshit. Yes, we can. Well, not Eric. Eric's not a dipshit. It was originally that guy who grabbed reporters' asses or something. Bill O'Reilly. He's the dipshit here. He's like, tide goes in, tide goes out. Can't explain that. Yes, we fucking can. Just like with the rain cycle or the water cycle. I always want to call it the rain cycle. The water cycle, the rock cycle. Any natural processes that we have, quote unquote, spontaneously happen. Now, it's not that they really spontaneously spontaneously happen. It's just that there are certain physical laws that are governing these processes that cause these things to happen. Now, considering all that, where does that leave Christians in this particular conversation? Well, I guess I should say theists in general. Where it leaves them is explaining how God is necessary for natural processes to operate. Because as it stands right now, the response that I would probably get from this guy is just that, well, God is required for natural processes to happen, so therefore it still requires God for it to happen. But that's just claiming that God is there. Like, if I claim that there's a change in energy levels in water vapor that causes it to rain, and there's another change in energy levels that causes water to gain more energy and turn into water vapor, rise up into the air, and form clouds. These are all things that we can scientifically prove, that we have lab experiments where we can literally show you it happening. Can you do that for God? Is there some kind of scientific experiment that we can do to prove that this exchanging of energy levels, in water requires some supernatural intelligence like God? Is there a scientific experiment that we can do for that? No, I don't think so. All you can do is speculate that God is required for the energy to change like that. And so they ultimately have a magical conclusion, whereas scientifically minded people have actual fucking answers.
And that is magical. That is outrageous. That is illogical. It literally is illogical. The principle, or the definition, I should say, of nothing is that it has no properties. It doesn't exist, and therefore there is no property to it, including something like causal power, right? Causal power would be a property of a thing that exists. So if nothing, which has no properties, has causal power, that's self-defeating. Well, the atheist has a savior. They can postulate, instead of the universe coming into existence out of nothing, they can say the universe is actually eternal. It has always existed and never didn't exist. This flies in the face of all science.
Sorry, he's appealing to authority here in a second, but he's presenting a false dichotomy. This is the second false dichotomy that's been presented in this video. Hold on, I had a list of different hypotheses that could explain the beginning of the universe. And I just want to rattle off a few here. One, Big Bang Theory, which is kind of what we've been talking about here. The most widely accepted scientific explanation for the origin of the universe. It posits that the universe began as a singular point of infinite density and temperature, which began to expand approximately 13.8 billion years ago. The theory is supported by observational evidence such as the cosmic microwave background radiation and the redshift of galaxies, two very popular things that you can appeal to for the universe inflating at one point in the past. Then there's the multiverse theory, suggests that our universe might be one of many universes that exist in a larger universe. This theory arises from the field of quantum mechanics and theories like eternal inflation, which propose that different regions of space can inflate like our universe did, creating a potentially infinite number of other universes with varying properties. And then there's cyclical or oscillating universe. I'm not going to read the entire descriptions of all of these. There's a quantum gravity model, string theory and M theory, emergent universe models, simulation hypothesis, which fucking dipshits, sorry, not dipshits, but I mean there are some people that put way too much stock in that. Steady state theory, which I guess is what he's talking about now, this eternal thing, which even my list here has it as abandoned in favor of the Big Bang Theory due to observational evidence. Causal dynamic triangulation is another one. And then there's the zero energy universe. This one's kind of interesting because it's something that he kind of touched on here. The zero energy universe, this hypothesis suggests that the total amount of energy in the universe is exactly zero. The positive energy of matter is exactly canceled out by the negative energy, negative gravitational energy, and thus the universe could come from nothing as no net energy is required to produce it. These are several different alternative hypotheses, not the thing that he's talking about. Now, to address something that he said, basically he thinks that the nothing that scientists are talking about is this absolute nothing, this theoretical absolute nothing. We haven't actually observed that to exist, so that's not actually what the scientific hypotheses ever purport. Except for, maybe the zero energy universe, but that doesn't mean that there is like no energy at all. It just means there's no net energy. Like the net energy is always zero. So it doesn't require energy for it to actually come about. And there's several levels of complexity that you can get into with each one of these hypotheses. He's creating yet another straw man in his false dichotomy to portray atheists as having this magical explanation for shit. But as he said, that if this nothingness has properties to it, like holding an electrical charge, then it's not nothing. He's literally answering his own fucking question, and he doesn't even know it. He's proving how bullshit his own statement is, but he doesn't even realize it. Casey said, yeah, bitch. I have to agree. Yeah, basic bitch.
Alexander Blanken, one of the most preeminent cosmologists in the whole world, one time said this: "It is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning."
I don't really give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what any scientist says from a personal position. Like this isn't a position that's based on evidence. This is one scientist's opinion. I don't really care about the opinions of a scientist. I don't think that you guys watching this video should care about my opinions on any particular topic. I mean, if you agree with them, that's great. If my opinions seem to convince you or sway you one way or another, fine. That's great too. What I care about is the information. And you notice that I am bringing actual information to this. I'm listing off the various scientific hypotheses. I've got explanations for each one of them. Even if I don't fully understand each one, I don't have to understand the basic premise of each hypothesis. I'm just speaking from a position that's informed by evidence. So I'm not saying like, trust me because of my opinion, or that, I have any kind of notoriety in the public space or anything. I don't, by the way. I don't think I have any kind of notoriety. I'm not delusional to that point. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think that you should believe me just because I'm me, right? That would be an argument from authority, which I'm not an authority at all on any of this. But the evidence that I'm providing from the experts in the field, those are authorities, but I'm using their evidence. They're well-reasoned arguments that are based on evidence. And I think that just bringing out some dude's opinion, whether he's a scientist or not, I don't really give a fuck. This dude could think that aliens jack off 3 times daily and throw their cum at the earth. I don't give a fuck.
He said it a little bit softer a few years later in this paper titled The Beginning of the Universe. And here kind of in his concluding remarks, he says, "The answer to the question, did the universe have a beginning, is it probably did." Okay, so it's a little softer. Listen to this. "We have no viable models of an eternal universe."
The eternal universe, or the steady state hypothesis that preceded the Big Bang, was overridden by the Big Bang theory. So yeah, we've already come to this conclusion. You're not saying anything profound here. You're not pointing out anything profound. What you're literally seeing in real time here is he's built a straw man, and then he's like, all right, blow up, motherfucker. No steady state universe, dipshit. And then he knocked it down. That you're seeing that happen in real time here. Like he's just fighting a straw man like he's Don Quixote. I mean, Don Quixote, I believe, fought windmills. Same premise though.
You will hear atheists say, but what about the Carol Chen model? And what about the oscillating model? And they'll postulate all of these non-evidenced theorems or theories.
So first of all, totally wrong here. These are not like theory. Like Big Bang is a theory. It's a scientific theory, like the Big Bang theory, scientific theory. But the rest of these are hypotheses, right? These are hypotheses that could compete with it. The Big Bang theory is, it has evidence behind it. It's built off of evidence. Like you got the redshift, you've got the cosmic microwave background radiation, you've got several different things that prove that at one point in the past, our universe inflated, whether it was out of nothing or something. I'm not exactly sure how the Big Bang, like in the official, like the well thought out theory explains it, but that's there. Now there's all the rest of these are hypotheses. The oscillating universe, that doesn't necessarily rule out the Big Bang Theory. There is some evidence for an oscillating universe, but the hypothesis has some problems with it. It has issues with, I believe, entropy. Like there's no good model or way to reverse entropy, which is what would be required by the model. That doesn't mean that the model's disproved. Maybe there's some kind of way to reverse entropy that we just haven't figured out yet, and we will later figure out reverse entropy or something like that. So that's still a possibility, but he's presenting all of these as scientific theories, or at least he's speaking about scientific topics and mixing it with colloquial terms, which seems to give the false impression that these are scientific theories, and they're not.
But you have to understand, not a single one of them is viable. They all have major flaws that either are internally incoherent, or they fly in the face of other well-established facts like the second law of thermodynamics, or they fly in the face of the BGV theorem. The BGV, or Born-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, gives us reason to believe that such a model simply cannot be constructed. Mathematically, it is, and logically, I would argue.
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this fuck doesn't really know much about mathematical anything. I feel like he wouldn't be saying, oh, mathematically it's been proven wrong. I feel like if he knew some mathematics, he just wouldn't say that. Also, it would be really great if he could explain some of these bullshit claims that he's making, like that any of these hypotheses violate the second law. Now, obviously, the oscillating idea does violate the second law, but I feel like if we were able to find a method or a way that entropy could be reversed, then it would just become part of the second law of thermodynamics, right? I feel like that is how science would work. But this guy doesn't really understand how science works. He's mixing up terms. He's representing colloquial ideas of theories as scientific theories, or at least, at the very least, he's discussing scientific hypotheses with very colloquial language, thereby confusing the viewer into thinking that he's speaking from a more scientific position. It's just so fucking ridiculous, everything that he's saying.
But at least according to their mathematics, it is impossible to construe the universe as though it were literally eternal. So here are your three options: God, nothing, or the universe is eternal. So you can be unscientific and fly in the face of all the known science. You can be illogical and ascribe to nothing, the attributes of something. Or you can take the very small leap of reason and say that a mind, which best describes information in the cell, information at the foundation of the universe, the fine-tuning of the universe, and the beginning of the universe, well, I'm going to go ahead and say that that thing actually exists.
So he's got three possibilities here. He's totally ignoring all the other reasonable possibilities. Both of these are straw man arguments of the actual, topic that we're discussing right now. And so the one topic that you actually have left here is a magical one where you're just speculating that there's some, old ass magician up there that created everything. This is your magical finger that you can sit and spin on. I mean, I'm being serious here. I mean, he represents this one thing as being the most reasonable option in the face of science. And all that he does for this one option here that is supposedly more reasonable is speculate about some old magician fuck that exists outside of space and time. And that's it. That's all he's got. Speculation about it. If this guy were to ever watch this video or any videos that we do here, I feel like you need to actually listen to what the arguments are, not from atheists. Well, I mean, some scientists are atheists out there. I mean, I think a majority of scientists end up being atheists out there. Listen to actual scientists about the explanations. Try to understand them the best that you can. And then come back with your magical space wizard thing. Come back with that. Try to explain it in the face of understanding the actual arguments that are being made. Instead of pulling this whole straw man thing where it's like, hey, I know I just built you out of straw and everything, and you're probably looking for your brain somewhere, but hey, you know what? Steady state is bullshit. Nothingness can't produce anything. And then knock it down. Like, instead of a false dichotomy, this is a false trilemma, I guess, maybe. I'm not exactly sure how you would say this because he's got God or these other two bullshit things that aren't actually being argued by anybody. He's so smug back there in this. He's like, yeah, I just got you fucking atheist by the nuts. Like, he's just sitting back there like, oh yeah, try to come back now, atheist. It's actually rather easy when you don't represent the scientific positions accurately. So maybe go back to the drawing board, motherfucker. I love those glasses, honey. All right, so that's going to be it for the video. It's a really short video, which I know at the very beginning, he said he wasn't really going to unpack and develop a lot of things at first, but I feel like if you're going to, introduce these topics, like I don't expect you to fully flesh out your speculative space wizard idea for creating the universe. You don't have to do that, but I would at least expect you to understand the counter arguments before you leap into this particular discussion. And it's hard for people to take you seriously when you can't even steelman the opposition. I mean, I watch religious content, like religious apologists and all that. I watch that stuff all the time. KC over there, she can attest to this. Like, we'll be in the car and we'll be listening to a debate between a theist and an atheist, or a scientist and a theist, or something like that. Like, I'll just be listening to it and she'll join in too, even though she hates listening to these fucks. She loathes it, but she watches it and listens to it for me, and I appreciate that so much there, hon. She puts up with a lot of bullshit from me because I want to know what the opposition is saying so that I can represent their positions honestly. And even if I paraphrase or I do a reductio ad absurdum, sorry, I pronounced that wrong, a reductio absurdum on their particular arguments or on their theologies or anything like that, I can come back and say, no, I perfectly understand your theology, but it's also not my fault that you can reduce your theology down to something really fucking ridiculous. So, my advice to anybody that's looking to wade into these particular topics and discussions is to actually learn what the opposition is proposing. Actually learn what people are saying in response to your particular position. I mean, this cannot be bad advice. Like, this is basic, like, debate 101, or just in general understanding your own positions. Like, you will be so prepared to handle any kind of conversation if you understand both your position and the opposition's, as well as what's wrong with the opposition and why your particular position trumps the opposition position. And I suggest everybody do it if you can. If you don't care about it, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't give a fuck what you do. Go and do whatever you want. Fuck a beer can bottle. I don't care. So, that's going to be it for our show tonight. I really appreciate everybody joining me. So if you're going to be heading out right now, I really appreciate you stopping by, checking us out, watching the video. Why don't you smash that like button and subscribe so that you can help us spread, Godless Engineer all over YouTube. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.